Oh, boy. Reading a gun review is so boring. I wish that there was a better way. Wait! There is YouTube. Let's see what I can find there. Let's bring YouTube up on the old screen and type in my search criteria. Let's see, Springfield Armory XDm10. Wow! There are a lot of video reviews on the Springfield Armory XDm10. I think that I'll look at this one first, but who in the heck is the Range Ronin? I've never heard of him.
Since I had previously introduced myself to the .40 Smith & Wesson, moving to the 10mm would be like moving from .38 Special to .357 Magnum, or from .380 Auto to 9mm Luger. When the time came for me to investigate the 10mm cartridge, as usual I am late in the game, the search for a suitable pistol platform ensued, in the same fervor as that for the .40 Smith & Wesson. However, this time I needed to be a little bit more serious about it. The 10mm auto cartridge is a powerful, high-pressure round, and I only had one financial chance of getting it right at the time. The 10mm auto produces energy slightly higher than the average .357 Magnum load, and below standard .41 Magnum rounds, and retains more kinetic energy at 100 yards than the .45 ACP has at the muzzle. In short, it takes a solid platform from which it would be fired. I wanted to make sure that the platform would be adequate for evaluating the cartridge without expending a whole lot of green stuff in doing so. Hey there, this is the Range Ronin, and it would be great to be like some professional firearm reviewers that can simply request a firearm for test and evaluation purposes, or have a major manufacturer contact them to see if they would review a product, then have the product for a review period, and then decide if they are to be returned or kept. That is not me, however. I get to invest hard-earned cash into what I plan to review. Therefore, I must investigate as thoroughly as possible, because I will be the sole owner of this firearm until I decide not to be, or forces beyond my control dictate otherwise. Because of this, however, I am able to provide fair and upfront reviews of products as I see them, and not how somebody wants me to see them. As a result of my investigations, the Colt Delta Elite was dropped from consideration due to the cost. The Glock G20 was dropped from consideration, as was the Glock G40, although the latter was the more desirable. With the high pressure of the 10mm auto cartridge, I wanted them to be as fully supported as possible, and the Glock barrels are questionable, or so I have been told. The SIG P220 in 10mm was also out due to cost. The Rock Island Armory 1911 FS Ultra HC in 10mm was enticing, especially considering the price. However, my son-in-law purchased one, and the plunger tube and components decided to prematurely exit the pistol the first day at the range. I just didn't feel that the RIA was up to the task. With that said, I did succumb to a purchase of the single-stack version of the Rock Island Armory 1911 in 10mm, the Rock Ultra FS. It is an excellent pistol, and I will do a video review of it later. There are other pistols, of course, with the Glocks being in the desired price range, as I was not going to sink a bundle of cash into something unless it is something highly desirable, and truthfully, a 10mm pistol was not highly desirable. It was something that I simply wanted to evaluate. If I liked it, and the cartridge, for my purposes it would be a keeper. If not, I would toss it up as a loss, but not as a great loss. Additionally, the Springfield Armory TRP which by the way is no longer offered by Springfield Armory in 10mm, was ruled out due to cost, although I do drool when I see this pistol. After all, the Springfield Armory TRP would be an excellent choice, in my humble opinion, but this was my first excursion with the 10mm cartridge, and there was no sense in sinking a whole lot of hard-earned cash into something that I may not like. I have to say that the Ruger SR1911 target in 10mm was enticing, as I trust Ruger to manufacture a robust firearm that would have handled the 10mm cartridge, and the MSRP of $1,019 at the time was something I could live with. Ruger also offers a 10mm firearm in its GP100 and Super Red Hawk line, but if defense use of the cartridge is the priority, as compared to hunting, then a semi-automatic pistol would be a wiser choice, since it is far more difficult to conceal something like the GP100 or Super Red Hawk, and a semi-auto has a great round count. I also want to maximize the cartridge velocity as much as possible, and I would consider a 5-inch barrel the minimum barrel length. I also wanted to maximize the benefit to cost ratio of the 10mm cartridge. Up to this point, I saw no benefit of the 10mm cartridge over other defense cartridges, but a decision had to be made, as I had already ordered range ammunition in anticipation of purchasing a pistol. The 10mm cartridge is as serious for defense as it is suitable for hunting medium-sized game, but hunting was not the intended purpose for this round in my company. Defense is. I needed the cartridge to give me the same warm fuzzies that I have when carrying my favorite 1911 anti-defensive loading, and I wanted a cartridge that could give me the confidence that I have with the 125-grain 357 Magnum cartridge, but in a semi-automatic pistol that could be concealed, however not easily. The Springfield Armory XDm 5.25 at an MRSP of $779 put it in my price range for what I would consider as my entry-level cost for evaluating both cartridge and pistol, although I don't consider the XDM as an entry-level pistol. I have the Springfield Armory XDm 5.25 and 45 ACP, and it is one of my favorites. So, and for me, it essentially came down to the Ruger SR1911 target or the Springfield Armory XDm 5.25. I have to say that the Springfield Armory XDm10 in 5.25 or 4.5 has a lot going for it. From the Springfield Armory marketing hype that I read, quote,
"An unprecedented torture test of 10,000 rounds was performed to prove the quality and reliability of this new addition to the XDM line, firing 10,000 rounds of Federal Premium Hydra Shock 10mm ammunition through the gun with every round documented on video. No work was done to the pistol, outside of a recoil spring change and adding Lucas Extreme Duty gun oil at 2,000 round intervals. The magazines were left uncleaned and exposed to wind, dust, and grit. The XDM 10mm performed flawlessly under these conditions and powered through all 10,000 rounds without a single failure. The XDM 10mm has been meticulously engineered to ensure the pistol is as robust and reliable a defensive force as possible."
Unquote. It certainly doesn't hurt that, since this pistol would be used for defensive purposes, having 15 plus rounds of 10mm auto at one's disposal ups the ante, and a 5.25-inch barrel would add a bit of velocity over the 4.61-inch barrel of the Glock G20. So now that I have totally confused you, let me get to the Springfield Armory 10mm and 5.25-inch competition, and why I felt it was the right pistol for me. Looking at the Springfield Armory XDm10 5.25, what we have is a semi-automatic pistol chambered in 10mm auto. It has a black melanite finish slide and a black polymer frame. It is double action only, using the USA Ultra Safety Assurance action trigger system. It has a fully adjustable rear sight with a fiber front sight. It has a 5.25-inch match-grade barrel, whatever that means, a total overall length of 8.3 inches, an unloaded weight of 31.2 ounces, a capacity of 15 plus 1 rounds, and has 3 empty magazines provided. A grip safety, loaded chamber indicator, and striker status indicator all serve as safeties, and it comes with changeable back straps. While I wanted the pistol, as expected, my local gun club did not have one to test out. That meant that I needed to acquire one, and an order was placed. A week later, the necessary $44.73 was completed, the bank account drained, the wife put up for adoption. Ooh. And no, the wife has not yet been adopted, which tells me something that I won't admit to. Fully loaded, the gun is undeniably weighty, roughly 38.668 ounces, or 2 pounds, 6.6 ounces. However, those 15 rounds are crammed into the same volume others might require for a 9mm parabellum. The gun carries about like a full-size .45 ACP. The grip is only a silly millimeter larger than the Glock 17. However, the grip texture is more pronounced, and the grip angle is set to an angle reminiscent of the 1911 A1. The grip safety is a feature that I have always liked, coming from 1911 stock, and adds just a bit more safety when handling the firearm, and more importantly, when holstering the firearm. Springfield includes 3 grip adapters with the pistol. Although I had no issues running the gun with the installed adapter, that may change later, but it was fine for now. Although I'm not a fan of fiber front sights, the Springfield Armory XDm 5.25 and 10mm auto has them, and they are well paired to a fully adjustable target-style rear sight that has no dots. The rear sight, however, is low profile, and the long sight radius of the Springfield Armory XDm 5.25 and 10mm auto is welcomed. The slide of the pistol is lightning cut, and the pistol weighs 1.5 ounces heavier than the 4.5 counterpart. That extra weight does aid in recoil management, but in a 10mm pistol like this, the difference in recoil is negligible. The XDm 5.25 has a high bore axis, like a Sig Sauer, which should result in a little more muzzle flip, but the weight of the pistol counteracts the muzzle climb, as does a good high hold on the pistol. When the slide locks back on the last shot, the large slide lock lever helps to close the slide for quick chambering. Otherwise, the substantial front and rear slide serrations help the hand to get a grip on the slide for slingshot chambering. Springfield magazines for the XD series of pistols are some of the best I have come across, and the XDm 5.25 gets 3 of them. The ambidextrous magazine release sheds magazines like water on a duck's back. Magazine insertion is positive, although it does take a bit of effort to load a magazine with the slide forward, and it takes some effort with an Uplula loader to get 15 of them into the magazine when the magazines are new. With the early XDm10 5.25, there were no round count verification or witness holes. Having to count rounds as you're stuffing mags isn't fun, but it's what we do for these magazines. However, with the pistol that I received, all 3 magazines had 15 witness holes in the spine. Since I have experience with other XDm pistols, the features and operation of the pistol are familiar to me. At first introduction to the Springfield line of polymer pistols, the grip texture was somewhat bothersome, but there was no way I could complain about not getting a grip. The XDm frame is molded with aggressive checkering and offers interchangeable back straps, and a full-size gun needs these things. Being able to get my hands firmly and completely around a gun, especially one in 10mm, is a must. However, the back straps on these guns are not quick to change. They require a 3/32 inch punch preferably a roll pin punch, and a hammer to drive out the retaining pin to change the straps. No disassembly of the pistol is required to change out the back straps, but you should experiment with the back straps to obtain the desired grip profile before beginning this endeavor. Quite a few complain about the USA trigger and try to compare it to, not surprisingly, the Glock trigger. The XDM trigger, however, is not a Glock trigger and should stand on its own merits. Trigger pull measured 5 pounds 8 ounces. The striker-fired trigger on the XDM is superlative. There is the expected smooth take-up and discreet break without a hint of creep. Personally, I like the trigger pull, as I feel it gives me a little leeway in taking or not taking a shot, whether in a defensive situation or when practicing on a static target. The pull is smooth, the reset is quick, and any good operator will become accustomed to the trigger within a couple of pulls. There is a lot more to be said about the Springfield 5.25 that applies to any Springfield 5.25. But to make this review as short as possible, let's move on to the disassembly procedure. Disassembling the XDM is very simple. You must keep in mind, though, that the recoil spring and guide are not captive, and care must be exercised when removing them. Point the gun in a safe direction while keeping the finger off the trigger. Grip the frame fully to disengage the grip safety. Draw back the slide to the rear stop position and lock it open. Remove the magazine and unload the firearm. Visually inspect the chamber to confirm that the firearm is unloaded. Rotate the disassembly lever clockwise to a vertical 12 o'clock position. Firmly grip the slide and pull to the rear to release the slide stop lever. Maintain a firm grip on the slide and allow the slide to slowly move forward until the spring tension is released. Move the complete slide assembly forward and off of the frame. Remove the recoil system from the slide. Remove the barrel from the slide. And this completes the disassembly of the pistol. At this point, I would normally clean and lubricate the pistol to ready it for storage, carry, or range duty. Assembling the pistol is straightforward. However, remember that the recoil spring and guide are separate assemblies and not captive. Care must be taken when installing the recoil spring and guide rod assembly, as it is under extreme spring pressure. Install the barrel into the slide, ensuring that the top of the chamber of the barrel is flush with the top of the slide. Reinstall the recoil system, ensuring that it is properly seated in the indention of the locking lug. As a note, improperly aligned recoil system or barrel position will cause reassembly problems. Never force the slide assembly onto the frame. Install the slide assembly onto the frame and secure it into place with the slide lock. Rotate the takedown lever counterclockwise to the horizontal position. Finally, check for proper operation. I use snap caps to check for firing, extraction, and ejection. Now that the XDM has been successfully disassembled and reassembled, let's take it to the range. Before we get to actually shooting the XDm10 5.25, let me talk about the safeties that are incorporated into the XDM. First, there is the trigger lever that, if not fully pressed inward, will prevent the trigger from moving into the frame. The second safety is the grip safety, which, if not fully pressed inward, will prevent the gun from firing. The grip safety must also be pressed to move the slide to the rear, whether the pistol is empty or a round chambered. A third safety is the chamber-loaded indicator on top of the slide. This tactile and visual indicator shows the operator that a round is chambered. Another safety is the striker condition indicator at the rear of the slide. If the indicator is not visible from its little hidey hole, the pistol is not cocked. When the striker is cocked, the indicator is fully visible and tactile. Of course, there is the usual trigger bar safety. The trigger bar has two functions. One, the trigger bar releases the firing pin by pushing down the sear. And two, it simultaneously lifts the internal firing pin safety block out of the firing pin's way so that the firing pin can move freely to the primer. So now that the safeties have all been addressed, let's move on to actually shooting this thing. I was excited about shooting this new caliber and pistol. New to me anyway. Even though I was familiar with the 9mm and 45 ACP versions of the XDM, 10mm was a different round, but in a similar pistol. While I would fall far short of running 10,000 rounds through this pistol, I felt that a box of Cellier & Belo 180 grain FMJ with a muzzle velocity of 1164 feet per second and a muzzle energy of 543 foot-pounds, and a box of 6-hour V-Crown 180 grain JHP that has a muzzle velocity of 1250 feet per second with a muzzle energy of 624 foot-pounds would tell me how the story would go after the first range outing. Accuracy is first and foremost, second only to dependability. And of course, accuracy and dependability cannot be determined by a first outing, as it may take several outings with different kinds of ammunition before the best for the pistol is to be determined. The ammunition that I had with me would be a good indicator. The recoil is, obviously, more pronounced than a 9mm and a 40 Smith & Wesson. The sharp impulse of the recoil tells you that you are not firing a 45 ACT cartridge. That is more of a shove and less pronounced, but not that much. The recoil, however, is very close to the 45 ACP, is very manageable, and just takes some getting used to. Accuracy is no problem if the operator does their part. The sights just seem to fall into place naturally. However, while the red fiber front sight is bright in normal room lighting and outside, the overhead range lighting was not enough to bring out its brilliance. There is a good gap between the front and rear sights, enough to obtain a good sight picture, even without the front sight fiber illuminated. And that's the way the pistol was shot. The rest is just keeping them where they should be throughout the trigger pull. The sole purpose of the trigger in the XDM is to release the striker, and it does a good job doing just that. The rear sight needed no adjustment, and it seemed that the pistol was already set up for 180 grain cartridges in elevation. Put the barrel on what you want to hit, the front sight just above it, roll back the trigger while keeping that sight picture, and the pistol does the rest. As mentioned previously, the Springfield Armory XDm 5.25 and 10mm auto has some muzzle flip due to the high bore axes, and enough recoil to let you know that you're not firing a wimp cartridge. The slide comes back with authority, and the recoil impacted me in the thumb web of the shooting hand. Getting back on target is no worse than when I shoot a full-size, full-weight government 1911 pistol in 45 ACP chambering. If you expect a 10mm pistol to act like a 9mm pistol, and you want or need to do a magazine dump, you may be disappointed. Recovery time, the time to get back on target, is about the same for me when shooting a 1911. The Springfield XDm 5.25 has great ergonomics that helps that happen. The polymer wide grip frame helps to distribute the recoil. As expected, Springfield Armory XDm 5.25 and 10mm performed without issue. It is almost boringly predictable in its functioning. The Mega Lock grip texturing I found to be ideal. It keeps the hand in place while not aggravating the hand. Although I did wear the texture a bit on the hand after the session was over. I did not have to reposition my grip after firing each round. I just had to bring the muzzle back in line. I was firing 5-round strings just as fast as I can with my 1911 45 ACP chambering. With full power hunting loads, however, I probably would not be saying the same. Then again, I hope that I don't need to shoot 5 or more rounds in rapid succession. But when being attacked by a very angry 2- or 4-legged animal, you're going to be doing the best you can to pump as many rounds in that beast as possible, and you will have 15+1 opportunities to do so. The grip adapter that came installed on the pistol, which is the small adapter, seemed to be the right size for me, and having a grip that fits your hand is a big plus. Shooting the Springfield Armory XDm10 5.25 with the selected loadings was a very pleasant experience, and its bark may bring some curiosity and comments from fellow shooters. I walked away from the range with a good taste in my mouth about the Springfield Armory XDm 10mm auto in 5.25 and the 10mm cartridge in general. Or it could have just been all the lead and smoke in the air. For those who think that light, compact pistols are great for carrying, but large, heavy pistols are greater for shooting, keep watching. This full-figured XDM is bulky and, therefore, a chore to conceal for one who does not want to take the time in selecting suitable gear and clothing to do so. Given that the Springfield Armory XDm 5.25, any XDm 5.25, is deemed a competition pistol, some people might balk at carrying a competition pistol for self-defense. However, consider that many who shoot a competition pistol in competition also rely on them for personal defense, although they might not consider carrying them concealed. The slide cutout could be a deal breaker for some who consider carrying the pistol. Dirt and debris could get into the slide and muck things up. For those, I point out that the open-top Beretta 92 M9 has been used in the mud and blood in worse conditions. A good holster and proper maintenance should keep bad things from happening to good pistols. A good concealment holster, OWB or IWB, with full barrel coverage should keep FOs, foreign objects, at bay. Another deal breaker may be the barrel length, which is a 1/4 of an inch longer than the standard 1911. One must concede that the barrel, up to a point, is the easiest to conceal. I have carried a Glock G41 concealed with its 5.30-inch barrel with no problems. But then again, I have enough girth that helps me do that. A thin person may not even consider it, and they may be right in doing so. Now, I'm not going to tell you that the Springfield XDm 5.25 is a delightful carry piece. That would be highly foolish of me. The XDm 5.25 is big, bulky, and heavy, and you just might prefer to carry something of less largeness and cross-sectional density. My point here is that in the right holster, the Springfield XDm 5.25 competition model carries comfortably, and it is nice to know that I have a few additional cartridges to work with if need be. There are those that would consider carrying the Springfield XDm 5.25 competition model as extreme, but then again, sometimes extreme duty takes extreme measures and tools. Springfield XDm 5.25 competition model fits right into that, in my humble opinion. For concealment, I have currently an IWB holster from Black Arch Holsters for the Springfield 5.25 and 45 ACP, and it is a perfect fit for the 10mm auto version. Because of the weight of the pistol, when fully loaded, I augment my belt with a set of Perry suspenders. When carrying concealed, I always wear a t-shirt and my outer shirt, which is one size too large and is worn with the shirt front open. When possible, a non-tactical photographer's vest is worn and serves as my man purse. With lower back problems plaguing me and the need to keep heavy objects off of my hips, I now prefer a good shoulder holster system. I have found a delightful shoulder system in the Craft Holster Velcro vertical rotor shoulder holster system. Try saying that after 3 drinks. The system has a feature that I really like, and Codion Noir seems to like it as well. Once the safety device is released, the holster can be rotated forward for easier drawing and holstering of the pistol, rather than remaining vertical, as with most vertical shoulder systems. Due to the Springfield XDm 5.25 being a large pistol, it may be better suited to be carried in cooler weather, where one or more outer layers of clothing would better conceal the pistol, if it is to be concealed. With that said, if you can effectively conceal a Glock G17 or similar, you should be able to conceal the Springfield XDm 5.25. I did do a lot of research before I decided that the Springfield Armory XDm10 5.25 would be the chosen one. Watching videos from Hickok 45, Suit 00, and the Military Arms channel, in addition to watching several 10mm versus 45 ACP videos, helped bring the 10mm cartridge and the pistol into focus. The 10mm auto could be viewed as the ideal single all-around utility cartridge. The Springfield Armory XDm 5.25, or even the 4.5, could be considered all-around utility handguns for the cartridge. The XDm 5.25 is manageable enough for recreational use and competition use, and the high-capacity magazine and serious chambering take some of the trepidation out of engaging in a serious social encounter. I would not feel undergunned, at least. While I won't be swapping out my normal EDC for the 10mm auto anytime soon, if at all, the Springfield Armory XDm 5.25 and 10mm auto is a keeper. If you are a beginner or experienced shooter with an interest in the 10mm auto and are looking for an excellent, affordable pistol to shoot the cartridge, you may, as I did, consider the Springfield Armory XDm 4.5 or 5.25 versions. But now, and given that the 5.25-inch competition version is no longer available, the Springfield Armory XDm Elite 4.5 OSP handgun may suit your fancy. Regardless, I must say that the Springfield XDm10 5.25 is an impressive handgun, in the holster or in the hand. Well, I am happy that you are still here as I close out this review. I will have other 10mm pistol reviews for the Ruger SR1911 Target, Rock Island Armory Rock Ultra, and Kimber Camp Guard sometime in the future, and I hope that you will join me then. In the meantime, stay safe out there.